No. Welcome back to Hannity and Colmes. I'm Kirsten Powers, sitting in tonight for Alan Colmes. We continue now with the author of the book Real Change, former Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich. So I don't think
I want you to tell me for a second, because you're doing a good job here trying to build an impossible defense. So I just want to say, we're trying to find somebody to be President of the United States. You are suggesting that when he decided that he could not have Reverend Wright at his campaign kickoff, and when Reverend Wright said to him, "You're probably going to have to disown me at some point," that it didn't pique his curiosity. Gosh, I wonder what Reverend Wright might have said.
I think that he could have thought that there were controversial things, but not that rose to the level of the stuff that's come up, that I think he was very clear in his speech that he does not identify with. And
but this doesn't shake your faith in his judgment.
No. And what I wanted to ask you about is, he's written a lot. He wrote his first book where he was very open about drug use, about all these other things, and he's never expressed a single view that is similar to these views that have been expressed by Reverend Wright. And frankly, we're not electing Reverend Wright. We're looking at Barack Obama. So is it fair to say we don't think Barack Obama believes any of this stuff?
Well, look, I think it's believes any of what stuff?
Any of the things that we're concerned about, anti-Americanism.
I believe Senator Obama is, in fact, a very sincere and dedicated senator who probably is less inclined to say anti-American things than his colleague in the Senate, Dick Durbin, who compared the U.S. to Nazi Germany, Pol Pot's Cambodia, and Stalin's Russia. So I think Senator Obama has more discipline.
So he's better than that.
He's better than Durbin. Okay,
let
me say unequivocally. But I think it's not. I'm not in any way challenging Senator Obama's sincerity. I am suggesting that the country is going to increasingly raise questions about his judgment, and is going to increasingly say, if he didn't have the nerve at some point to say to Reverend Wright, maybe you should calm down some, why do you think he should, this policy he's proposing to go around and talk to every dictator on the planet, why would you think he'd do a better job talking to Kim Jong-il?
He doesn't want to talk to every dictator on the planet. He said he would be willing to do it, meaning he would be willing to consider it under certain circumstances.
Well, I think he went from I should do it to maybe we'll do it to now I'll consider it.
I know, you're making it sound like he's just going to walk in and just call him up and say, come on over. That's not the reality, and that's not what's going to happen. And I think that he is being tarred with the things that Reverend Wright said, and he never said them.
I don't think that would be fair. I haven't tarred him with a single thing Reverend Wright said. I don't think he's anti-Semitic. I think Reverend Wright is. I don't think he's a racist. I think Reverend Wright is. I don't think he's anti-American. I think Reverend Wright is. What I do think is that Senator Obama, as a public leader and a potential president, showed extraordinarily bad judgment and failed totally to do due diligence. I mean, I got caught in the situation one time. Let me just say, I appointed somebody to be the House historian right after I became Speaker, and it turned out that long before she had done a truly stupid thing, and we dismissed her the night we learned it. It was painful, it was personal, and we dismissed her the night we learned it.
When he disinvited the pastor to his invocation, when he announced that he was running for president, the reason he gave is, well, you know, Pastor, your sermons can get kind of rough. So that is an indication that he knew where the pastor was coming from. It's very interesting. If you listen to the speech today, remember when he started quoting from the book Dreams from My Father? And he quoted, in the book, he quoted page 294. Well, I actually went back and read the book. And on page 293, he's quoting from the Audacity of Hope speech, which inspired his second book, Audacity of Hope. And in that it says, where white folks' greed runs a world in need. That's from the Audacity of Hope speech, the one that he said inspired him so much that, you know, he wrote a book about. White folks' greed runs a world in need. That sounds like that would be a tip-off that that's a problem, don't you think?
Well, unless maybe he agrees with it.
Well, can one conclude that?
No, I think one can ask him, and that would be good. Since he put it in the
white folks greed. White folks.
There are no white people in the world that are greedy. I'm
sorry. White folks greed.
Aren't there also Chinese who are greedy, Indians who are greedy, Africans who are greedy?
I just think, can we at least acknowledge that there's racism against black people?
No, but there's plenty of racism, and I think some of it came from the pulpit of Jeremiah Wright.
I don't agree with anything Jeremiah Wright said.
Well, then why did he sit there for 20 years? You're saying, but this is important. For 20 years, you're saying he's able to go to this church and sit there and disinvite his pastor, to ignore the fact that his pastor goes to Libya to meet Gaddafi, our sworn enemy. Louis Farrakhan, one of the biggest anti-Semites and racists in America, and you're saying no culpability.
No, I'm saying this is a person who he says led him to Jesus Christ, and this is the relationship that he had with him. And I think that he, and I also
would you go to a church that had a pastor This is an important question. Would any of us go to a church that had a pastor that bestowed a Lifetime Achievement Award on one of the well-known racist and anti-Semites in the country, Louis Farrakhan?
I would not. But I'm also not African American, and I've had a different experience in this country.
I don't think that's not an excuse.
Well, I think that
the white man is the skunk of the planet Earth.
I think there's a generational aspect also.
Right, we better bring the speaker back in. What is your? I
don't know. I think the audience is probably enjoying this.
What is your?
You two make for a lively debate.
What is the political?
Why don't I be the moderator? Now I'd like to turn and ask Kirsten how she feels.
What is the political outcome of this? I mean, in other words, I think this. If he gets the nomination,
look, I think there's a, and Kirsten raised one of the two key questions. There are two key questions that come out of this speech. The first is, do you accept the view, as you just put it, that somehow this all gets wrapped up in race? I think it's very telling that Senator Obama went to race as the title of his speech, and now we're going to have this discussion about race, okay? Having now watched racist comments from his pastor. The second is whether or not this is a question of judgment. If you accept Kirsten's view, which I suspect 40% of the Democrats accept, that he didn't know, that he went through 20 years without hearing, that despite the fact that, you know, Pastor Wright's a pretty strong, powerful speaker, it never occurred to him, nobody in the church ever mentioned it to him, nobody ever come up to him and said, boy, you missed a great sermon last Sunday, boy, he really gave it to those guys. And now, if you can accept that view, my argument is, to believe he went through 20 years and didn't figure it out doesn't make me very confident that he's ready to be president, because it makes me wonder what he would go through the next year not figuring out.
Mr. Speaker, we love having you in studio. You are a great moderator.
I'm delighted to be back. Anytime you two would like me to come back and moderate a debate, you call on me.
All right. Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich, and we appreciate you being with us.